A very common form element is a text field, a place where a user can type in a name, for example. So I'm going to add a space here after the word's first name, and I'm going to insert a text field by simply clicking on the text field button. If you have accessibility attributes turned on, this dialog box will open right away. If you don't have them turned on, the text field will simply appear on the page. I'm going to turn accessibility attributes off for the rest of this lesson, just to save us some time. But before I do, let me point out a few things you should be aware of and encourage you to use accessibility attributes when you're actually creating a form for the web. The first field that you see in the input tag is the ID field, and that's really used to target JavaScript. So you should include a single word, no spaces, no special characters as the ID. The label tag is the next field, and that can help with accessibility by providing a label to identify what the field is for. Down here at the bottom, a couple of other things I want to point out to you. The access key field lets you enter any keyboard letter to be used by your visitors as a shortcut. So for example, if I put the letter F here for form, then somebody on a Windows machine could use the Alt F to move from one form field to another, and someone on a Mac could use Control F to move from one field to another. This is especially helpful if you can't see the fields and you're just trying to use the keyboard to move from one field to another, or if you have trouble using a mouse and selecting fields more precisely. So including an access key can help make it simpler for your users. You can also enter a number in the tab index. It's common practice to use the tab key to move from one form field to the next, and if you use this tab index field, you can enter a number and control the order that those fields will be accessed. So if I made this number 1, it would be the first one that somebody would access with the tab key. If it were number 3, it would be the third one you would get to after you had pressed the tab key 3 times. I'm going to cancel this for now and turn off accessibilities and preferences, but as I mentioned, I strongly recommend you use these features when you're creating a form for the web. And you'll find this option in the Accessibility category, Show Attributes for Form Objects. You can also turn attributes on and off for frames, media, and images in this same dialog. Now when I insert a text box for the last name, and I'm just using a spacebar first, you'll see Dreamweaver simply inserts the text field. So let's take a look at the HTML attributes for your text field. Here at the bottom of the screen, with that text field selected, I can see that my text field has a name. And Dreamweaver will automatically name every form element you add. So the first field is called text field. This one's text field 2. If I add another, it'll be called text field 3. I prefer to rename them something that makes sense to me. I'm going to call this one last. And I might call the first one first. That just helps me when I'm looking at this data later to know what this field corresponds to. You also have an option of entering a character width. So if I enter 45 there, you see it makes the text field wider. There's now room for 45 characters. The max characters field lets you restrict the total number of characters a user can enter. I almost always leave that field blank so that someone can type as much or as little as they want to. But you might, for example, if you had a zip code field or a state abbreviation field, restrict it to 2 characters for the state abbreviation or 5 characters for the zip code, just to make sure you only got as many characters as you wanted entered into that field. I'll cover the rest of the options in this Properties panel in a moment as we add a multi-line text field. But first I want to show you that once you've set up a text field like this, you can use copy and paste to add that same text field to another place on the page. Now I still recommend that you change the text field name. In this case I might call it email, but if you've taken time to fill in several settings, you can save a little time this way. At the bottom of the page, I have a place for comments, questions, and compliments. This is a good place to use a multi-line text field. So again, I'm going to insert a standard text field by just clicking on the text field button, but this time I'm going to choose multi-line, as well as setting the character width to 45. And if you leave the wrap setting to default, the user's text will automatically wrap when they reach the end of that space. You can also insert an initial value. like please add text here, and whatever you type into that field will be displayed in your text field when the page is loaded. The password radio button is only to be used if you're creating a text field where someone should enter a password. And you can use the class field to apply a style to any form element, just like you would apply it to anything else on the page.